Here's something nobody tells you at your yearly checkup. The fat you can pinch on your belly isn't actually the dangerous one. There's another kind, hiding deeper, wrapped around your liver, your intestines, your pancreas. Doctors call it visceral fat. And after 60, your body starts storing more of it, even if the number on the scale barely moves. This isn't about looking a certain way, in a swimsuit. Visceral fat is metabolically active tissue. It pumps out inflammatory chemicals around the clock. It's linked to insulin resistance, fatty liver, and heart strain. And here's the frustrating part. Most doctors are so short on time during appointments that they hand you a generic pamphlet about eating healthy and move on to the next patient. Why does this matter more after 60 specifically? Hormonal shifts play a role, especially the drop in estrogen after menopause and the gradual decline in testosterone in men. Both changes nudge the body towards storing fat centrally, around the middle, instead of the hips and thighs like it might have earlier in life. On top of that, muscle mass naturally declines with age. And muscle is one of your body's biggest calorie-burning tissues at rest. Less muscle means a slower metabolism, which means the same diet that kept your weight stable at 40 can quietly lead to visceral fat gain at 65, even without eating more. So today, we're going deeper. We pulled from real, published research, actual clinical trials, cohort studies tracking tens of thousands of people, and peer-reviewed nutrition journals to find 9 foods with real evidence behind them for targeting visceral fat specifically, not just weight in general, visceral fat. One quick honest note before we start. No single food melts fat off your organs overnight. Anyone who tells you that is selling something. What the research actually shows is more interesting than a magic bullet, and a lot more doable. Let's get into it. Number 1. Barley. A double-blind, randomized trial out of Japan tested high beta-glucan barley against a control group. Beta-glucan is a type of soluble fiber that turns thick and gel like in your gut. The people eating barley regularly saw a measurable drop in visceral fat, not just body weight. Here's why this works. That gel-like fiber slows down how fast your stomach empties. It blunts blood sugar spikes after meals. And when your insulin response calms down, your body has less reason to keep shuttling fat into deep abdominal storage. You don't need a specialty health food store for this. Swap white rice for pearled or hulled barley 2 or 3 times a week. Toss it into soups. It's one of the cheapest fiber sources on the planet, and it's been sitting in the grain aisle the whole time. Number 2. Psyllium husk. This one sounds like a supplement aisle gimmick. It's not. Psyllium is a viscous, soluble fiber, and it's been tested in multiple randomized controlled trials, including in people with type 2 diabetes. In one trial, just under 11 grams a day for 8 weeks significantly reduced BMI compared to a control group, along with meaningful drops in blood sugar and insulin resistance markers. The mechanism is almost identical to barley. Psyllium forms a thick gel in the digestive tract. That gel physically slows digestion, increases the feeling of fullness, and reduces how much sugar hits your bloodstream at once. Less sugar spiking means less insulin. Less insulin circulating chronically means your body is less likely to keep packing fat around your organs. A teaspoon stirred into water or yogurt before a meal is enough to start. Start slow, though, and drink plenty of water with it, or it can back you up instead of helping you. Number 3. Lentils and beans. Legumes rarely get the spotlight, but a large cohort study using actual MRI scans to measure visceral fat, not estimates, not calipers, real imaging, found that people eating more legumes and higher fiber diets consistently carried less visceral fat around their organs. Beans and lentils are doing 2 jobs at once. They're loaded with fiber, similar to what we just talked about with barley and psyllium, but they're also a plant protein source, and protein matters enormously after 60 because it helps preserve muscle while you're losing fat. Losing muscle along with fat is actually one of the biggest hidden problems with aging and weight loss. It can make you metabolically weaker, not stronger. A half cup of lentils in a soup or black beans folded into a salad 3 or 4 times a week checks both boxes. Fiber for the gut, protein for the muscle. Number 4. Whole grains. This one has some of the strongest research behind it of anything on this list. That same MII-based cohort study we just mentioned, involving over 1,000 older adults with an average age of 69, found whole grain intake was one of the most statistically significant predictors of lower visceral fat. Meanwhile, the same study found the opposite pattern for potatoes, total fat, and saturated fat. Higher intake of those was linked to more visceral fat, not less. This isn't about cutting carbs entirely, it's about which carbs. Refined white flour and white rice get digested fast, spiking blood sugar. Whole grains, still carrying their fiber and bran, get digested slowly, and that slow digestion appears to matter specifically for abdominal fat storage. Practical swap. Oats instead of sugary cereal. Whole wheat or rye bread instead of white. Brown rice or farro instead of white rice. Small swaps, repeated daily, add up over months. Number 5. Berries. Now here's one that actually surprises people. Because berries get lumped in with fruit is just sugar advice. That's not what the data shows. In that same large-scale imaging study, total fruit intake met the strictest threshold for statistical significance in predicting lower visceral fat, right alongside whole grains and fiber. Berries specifically are lower in sugar than most fruit and higher in both fiber and polyphenols, plant compounds with antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. Since visceral fat itself behaves like an inflamed, hormonally active tissue, anything that calms systemic inflammation is doing real work here, not just cosmetic work. A handful of blueberries, blackberries, or raspberries on oatmeal or yogurt is an easy daily habit. Frozen is just as good nutritionally as fresh, and often cheaper. Number 6. Leafy greens and colorful vegetables. This is the one your grandmother probably already told you, and the research backs her up completely. The same cohort study found total vegetable intake inversely associated with visceral fat, meaning more vegetables, consistently less abdominal organ fat. Harvard Health has echoed this too, pointing out that anti-inflammatory, nutrient-dense vegetables support stable blood sugar and keep you fuller for longer, which naturally crowds out the processed, high-sugar snacks that tend to feed visceral fat storage. Spinach, kale, broccoli, bell peppers, carrots. The variety matters almost as much as the volume, because different colors carry different protective plant compounds. Simple rule. Try to make half your plate vegetables at lunch and dinner. It sounds almost too basic to mention. But almost nobody over 60 in Western countries is actually hitting that target. Number 7. Fatty fish, olive oil, and nuts. This trio comes from Mediterranean diet research, some of the most heavily studied dietary patterns in the world, run through decades of randomized controlled trials in Spain and beyond. A secondary analysis of a Mediterranean-style trial found that people who increased their intake of olive oil, nuts, legumes, and fish saw measurable improvements in liver fat and their lipid profile, independent of whether they lost weight. That's a critical detail. The fat quality itself was doing work, separate from calories. Extra virgin olive oil, walnuts, almonds, and fatty fish like salmon and sardines are rich in monounsaturated and omega-3 fats. These appear to shift how the body partitions fat, favoring subcutaneous storage, just under the skin, over the more dangerous visceral kind wrapped around your organs. A drizzle of olive oil instead of butter. A small handful of walnuts as a snack instead of chips. Fatty fish twice a week instead of red meat. These are small trades with a strong research backing behind them. Number 8. Fermented foods. Here's the one that genuinely qualifies as weird, and it's got some of the most fascinating recent research behind it. A study published in 2025, specifically in adults over 60 with metabolic syndrome, tested a diet combined with probiotics. The results showed meaningful reductions in visceral fat, inflammatory markers like CARP, and insulin resistance, alongside improved quality of life and better sleep. The theory here connects to the gut microbiome. Fermented foods like yogurt with live cultures, kefir, sauerkraut, and kimchi introduce beneficial bacteria that appear to influence how your body regulates inflammation and metabolizes fat through what researchers call the gut-brain and gut metabolism connection. A small serving of plain yogurt or kefir daily, or a forkful of sauerkraut or kimchi alongside a meal, is a low-effort way to work this into your routine. Look for labels that say live and active cultures. Number 9. Green tea. We're closing with green tea, and we need to be honest with you here, because a lot of videos overstate this one. Some trials are genuinely promising. One randomized, placebo-controlled trial in adults with a high proportion of visceral fat found that 12 weeks of catechin-enriched green tea significantly reduced visceral fat area compared to the control group. A broader meta-analysis found green tea catechins, combined with caffeine, modestly reduced body weight and waist circumference. But here's the honest part. A rigorous double-blind trial published in 2026 tested green tea catechins combined with inulin fiber in adults with visceral obesity, and after 12 weeks it improved insulin resistance, but did not significantly reduce visceral fat compared to placebo. So the evidence is real, but it's mixed, and the effect, when it does show up, is modest. Not a fat-burning miracle. A small supporting player, at best. If you enjoy 2 or 3 cups of green tea a day anyway, there's genuine research suggesting it might help a little, alongside everything else on this list. Just don't expect it to do the heavy lifting alone. So there you have it. Barley, psyllium, lentils and beans, whole grains, berries, leafy greens, olive oil with nuts and fatty fish, fermented foods, and green tea. Notice what's missing from this list. No detox teas. No fat-burning pills. No $15 powder from an influencer's online store. Every single food on this list is sitting in a regular grocery store, and every single one has actual published research behind it. Not a testimonial, not a before and after photo with suspicious lighting. One more honest note before you go. None of this replaces movement. Multiple studies we referenced, including a trial specifically in adults over 60, found that structured exercise programs reduced visceral fat percentage while building muscle, and that combination, diet plus movement, is where the real results happen. Food alone can move the needle. Food and a daily walk, or some resistance training, moves it faster. And of course, if you have existing health conditions, or you're on medication, it's worth talking to your doctor before making major changes, especially around fiber intake and fermented foods if you have digestive conditions. If this was useful, you know what to do. Subscribe for more real, research-backed breakdowns. No gimmicks, no miracle cures, just what the actual studies say. See you in the next one.